So welcome to another episode of Junkyards and Barn Finds with Sean, and I'm Sean. Before I worked on my car channel, in 2014, we had done a pilot because I've also been an artist that's done car paintings. I've done over 900 of them in the last 10 years. This is one that you may have seen. It's been sold all over the world. Anyway, and we had done a video as a pilot for cable channel, and I figured I would include it here. It's not been seen other than in boardrooms and stuff when we were trying to sell it. So here it is. If you don't want to watch it or go, hey, how come this is in your channel? Well, it has to do with cars. It has to do with being an artist, and it has to do with me, and it was pretty well produced, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you. Good morning from Cape Coral, Florida's Yacht Club and Beach. I'm Sean Dever, and this is Buddy. You might recognize Buddy from some of the paintings he's been in. He's been in about 600 of my paintings. And we are here this morning to discuss today's episode, which is the tools of the trade. So this is going to be, today we're going to go over the tools that you need for becoming an artist. We're going to go over how to get a canvas, where to get brushes, what medium you want to work on, what paints to use. So we're going to go ahead and get started doing that right now. And so Buddy and I are going to go and jump in the truck, and we're going to head over to Lowe's, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Back in the 1500s and 1600s, when the master painters that we see in museums were around, they didn't have craft stores or a Lowe's to go to. They had to build their own frames and make their own paint. And so today, you know, we're pretty lucky with what we can find, and that's what we're going to do today, is going to go out and buy what we need to buy. We're here at Lowe's. What we're looking for to frame the canvas is you want to get a 2x2 premium furring strips. They normally run about $1 to $2 a piece, and when you're looking at them, you want to make sure when you look at it that it looks really straight. Furring strips are used in construction almost like a waste wood to hold up walls and stuff, so they don't really cut them too particularly straight. So you might have to go through 3 or 4 of them to get them. But you get these, they're about 8 feet long, so if you're going to do a 2-foot by 4-foot painting, you want to probably get 5 of them, so that way you have extra wood, because you're going to need the frame on the outside, which is a 2-foot, then a 4-foot, and a 4-foot, but you're also going to need some support wood on the inside. Now we're in the hardware aisle, because you're going to need to either get nails or screws, and you're going to have to decide whether you want to use nails and a hammer and screws. I use screws because when you use the screws, if you mess up, you can always go back and unscrew them. So you want to use the deck screws if you're going to use the screws, because the deck screws have a coating on them, and the coating will not come through the canvas. It's not going to rust. They're going to be there for years and years and years and years and years. So that's what you want to use. Okay, so here we are at the staple gun. We've got a variety of staple guns to choose from. There's different manufacturers, there's different types. What we want to do is we want to look for a type such as this one from Arrow, the JT21. It doesn't have to be heavy duty. All you're really doing is holding canvas to a wood frame. So you don't really need to have a lot of power on this. It's just basically going to hold. You're going to use a lot of staples to do this. So remember, when you buy your stapler, you also want to get these staples, a couple boxes of staples. So let's put this back. And next we're going to go over to the paint department, and we're going to go look at the clear coats as well as the primers, because we're not going to use gesso, we're going to use primers. Okay, so what we're looking at next is the clear coat. Remember, I spoke about the clear coat, that what you're going to use the clear coat for is when you have a finished painting, you need to protect that painting, and there's different clear coats, there's different polyurethanes that you want to use. They're very thin. Over time, over the next 200 years, maybe some of them will be discolored, but for the most part, they're fine for what we're doing. And if 200 years from now somebody brings a painting back to you and says, hey, the clear coat's getting a little unclear, then we can deal with it then. What we're looking for is a polyurethane. You've got the oil modified, and you've got a fast drying polyurethane satin. Both of these, if you look, they're about $32 to $49. The oil ones obviously are not water cleanup. I like to use the ones that are water cleanup. So you can also get these little small ones. Honestly, any of these little small cans like this, they're only $6. This will probably do 5 to 10 paintings. So if you just want to get this, if you're not going to do a lot, this is what you want to do. It's just these small cans for now. But this is also good to use, by the way. It's the same stuff that you can use on any of your wood furniture outdoors or anything else. So if you have other projects that you want to protect, you can use the same stuff. All right, now we're going to go over the primer. Okay, so we're now in the aisle where they have the different primers. And the primers like Kills and Bullseye and such, these are typically used in an industrial fashion to cover up graffiti, to primer drywall and stuff. But what we use them for is on the canvas, because what happens is once you stretch your canvas and you put these primers on the canvases, when they dry, it actually stretches the canvas itself and tightens it up to make a really firm surface. And it doesn't take that long. I mean, once we get the fabric stretched and you put the primer on, you're only talking probably about 20 minutes to an hour before you can actually start painting on the canvas. But you definitely need a primer. A lot of people use Gusso, which is sold in craft stores and specialty shops. Gusso, a little thing of Gusso like this would probably cost you, oh my god, a gallon of Gusso would probably be over $100. And as you can see here, for $17, $14, you can get some Bullseye. For this here should last you 6 months of doing painting. Okay, so the last thing we're going to buy when we're here is we're going to buy us some of these inexpensive brushes to use with a couple things. You want to use them when you're putting the primer on the canvas. You want to use them when you're using a lot of background paint. And you can get them, like I said, they're only $1.15 or 99 cents. I normally will pick up about 10 of these and always have a couple extra ones there for me. Okay, so we're in the fabric store. What we're looking for is what's called duck cloth. And this is duck cloth right here. And it's kind of like a canvasy type cloth. It comes in a bolt. This is a bolt. And a bolt is 3 feet wide, and you buy this by the yard. This is around $10
$10, $12 a yard. A lot of times you can get coupons, where you get buy one, get one free. And what you do is you figure out what size you want. This is folded in half, and it kind of feels canvassy. It's kind of tough. And what you do is you get the white stuff that comes in colors, but for artists you use white. And you just take it over to a table, and they'll cut you whatever size you need. So what you want to do before you come here is you want to figure out what your frame is, and then I always add 6 inches to all the lengths, because that way you can do the pullover. So anyway, this is duck cloth, and from here now we'll go to the craft shop and I'll show you what paints to buy. Okay, so this morning what we're going to do is we're going to go in here to AC Moore, and I'm going to show you the different types of canvases or medium that you can use. We're going to go over canvases, we're going to go over different types of vellum or watercolor paper, and we're going to look at some easels, and we're also going to look at the different paints that are available. So come on with me. Okay, so we've talked before about Gusso. And like I said, you can use Gusso, and here's a gallon of it. And what I normally do, like I said, is I use the primer from big box stores, your Home Depots, your Lowe's. And I use those because a gallon of that's only $16, $12. So, but you can use Gusso if you want. Some people do. Some people think it's a little bit better, but that's totally up to you. Okay, so we're going to use acrylic paints, and they come in bottles and tubes. This is the tubes. You have a higher end, very thick acrylic paint here. You've got basics and some other lines which are not as thick, and you have what's called a heavy body, which is a heavy body tube. These almost have like the consistency of an oil. So if you want to try this, but not work in the oil, we can always try that because they're water cleanup as well. So the acrylic paints are all water soluble, so you can clean it with water. And like I said, 3 for $1. So we're going to buy a bunch while we're here right now. But when you guys come in, you just come in, you pick whatever colors you want. They come in the small bottles, and since we do a lot of the Caribbean waters and stuff, you want to make sure you get a lot of blues. So you buy the blues in the bigger bottle because we're going to use a lot of blues. And a lot of tans for the beach, but you can see they have everything here. Okay, so here's all your brushes, and you can do 2 things. They got fun packs of brushes here, which are inexpensive. Maybe a start off, they come with like 25 different brushes, all kinds that you can use, and you guys can get these. They're really inexpensive. If you want to go with the higher end brushes, like I said, a couple brushes that you're going to definitely need is you're going to need a bristle fan brush, and this is a bristle fan brush, and you can see it looks like a fan. And what you're going to use this for is you're going to use this for when you're doing the oceans. You're going to use this for palm trees. If you're putting the animal in, you can use this for the hair on the animal. But this, you can also jab it like that and do bushes. So we want one of these, at least one of these, sometimes more. You're going to want to get a really, really, really fine tip brush. Something like this. See how fine that is? Look at how small that is. So you're going to want a really fine tip brush. And these brushes run anywhere from $3 to $5 to $7 a piece, but they'll last you for years. So what you want to do is you want to get a fine tip brush, because this is what we're going to use for detailing. We're going to do eyes, we want to do parts on a fence or little signs or any writing on a painting. This is what you want to get. So we need those. You're also going to have assortment of wide brushes, and I call them round tip brushes. And so you're going to get some of these. Now you can buy them in the pack, or you can buy them separately. If you're only going to do 1 or 2 paintings in the summer, you just want to do these. But if you want to do this for a long time, you want to get a nice quality brush. And they have a really nice selection of quality brushes here. So, other than that, what we're going to do now is look at the medium that we're going to be painting on. So let's go and look at the medium we're going to paint on. Okay, these are the news, you have newsprints, and you have watercolor sheets, and sketch pads and drawing pads. The watercolor sheets are the ones you can paint on. It's a very thick paper. The paper is really, really thick here on the watercolor pads, and so if you're going to get one, you don't want to use newsprint for painting, you need to use a watercolor. And as you can see, they've got plenty of different canvases of all sizes that you can buy. And while there are some canvases, as an artist, you're going to make yourself, for the most part, when you get into the smaller canvases, the 14 by 18s, 18 by 18, 16 by 20 or smaller, it's just more convenient and economical to purchase one of theirs. Like, they basically come in a two size, they don't come in a 2-pack or a 1-pack. There are a couple different things to look for. The first thing is, if you look at this one here, you'll notice that the end here is very thick. And what this is known as, this is called a museum wrap. And when we build our own canvases, that's why we use a 2-inch by 2-inch so that we can do the museum wrap. And typically on a museum wrap, you're not going to frame it, but you will paint over the side. You're going to paint all this canvas, so you're actually, the back here is what's not going to be painted. Okay. This is a studio wrap or a standard wrap. And basically on something like this, you're going to probably have it framed, which is why you don't really have to worry about whether you paint the edges, although I always paint over the edges anyway. But for this is a studio wrap and you don't have to do this. Okay, one of the papers that I like to use, this is an actual acrylic pad. It's kind of like, it's textured, so it captures the paint and it won't bend or anything. So if you don't want to spend the money for any of the canvases, you can go ahead and use an acrylic pad with paper. And they come in different sizes. You've got the small all the way up to the real large stuff. Okay, finally the last thing is we have what's called canvas panels. And a canvas panel is something that you're going to, it's kind of a hybrid between, it's as thin as a paper, so this has like 5 panels in it, but it's a board and it's hard and solid. And so it's kind of like a canvas. So you can buy these, they're inexpensive. They're great if you're going to end up framing what you guys are going to be doing. So if it's going to be framed, you can use a panel. They don't really hang up that well without a frame. So, and of course, you've got canvas paper as well. And so these come in different pads and different sizes. So, all right, that should get everybody going. The only other thing you need to decide is if you want an easel, and they do carry easels in most of these scrap shops, like AC Moore, or like I do, I just use a table. And so now that you know where everything is, go out, shop, you get all your stuff, and then join me. Okay, so now we're back from the store, and we've got the supplies we need to make a frame, but now we're going to, some of the tools we're going to need to make a frame. So first off, I have my table. You can see the paint on here. I use this table a lot. This is what I also paint on. It's just a little 4x2 table that you can buy. They're about 20 bucks if you buy them new. I'm sure you could find them somewhere else used if you want to look on Craigslist or whatever. So we're going to need some saws. So this is a table saw, and table saws, which are kind of big and they have an arm, you can just lay the wood in them. They cut really well. And the table saws, these things run about 200 bucks. And they're well worth to have because they're really easy. I've had this one for a couple years. If you don't want a table saw, you don't want to spend that much money, you can always get a circular saw. This is a circular saw. This one's battery powered, which is nice. It came in a little kit of like 3 or 4 different tools. It also came with a screw gun. Since you're going to need a screw gun, you could probably get these little kits. These kits run around about $110 to $115. If you don't want to spend that much,
you can also just go ahead and get a jigsaw. These jigsaws cost under $20. If all you're going to be doing is cutting the wood and you don't really do any other projects around the house, these are good to have. Finally, you can always use the trusty handsaw, and mine's a trusty rusty handsaw because I haven't used this handsaw probably in 10 years, but it's always good to have a handsaw around because you never know when the electric's going to go out and you're in the middle of a project and you want to get it done. Other thing you're going to need is a square. This one is a square, a speed square, and what you're going to use this for is when you're putting the wood down, you want to make sure you get a 90-degree angle, so it's good to have. Also, I use this sometimes just as a straight edge when I'm painting or drawing out my painting because I want to have a straight edge. Next is Gorilla Glue. You're going to need glue of some kind for the joints of the frame. We're not going to be gluing the canvas down, but you are going to be gluing the wood joints together. And I use Gorilla Glue. I use it because I also work in metal and some other types, and this stuff pretty much does everything. You can use Elmer's wood glue, liquid nails, any wood glue that you want. This stuff's not that expensive at all. I mean, you're talking probably $2 to $3. You're going to need yourself a tape measure, and for obvious reasons, you'll need one of those. You're going to need a knife box cutter or just a knife, because once you stretch the fabric over, you're going to want to trim the fabric that's on the back, just to trim it to get it out of the way so it looks nice. And finally, which we talked about before, is trusty little staple gun and a box of staples. So that's what we need tool-wise to make our frame. So if you want to go get that, I'm going to go and get the wood out of the truck and the other fabric that we had, and I'll meet you back here in a couple minutes, and we're going to go ahead and build a frame. So get your stuff together, and I'll meet you back here in a minute. Alright, so now we're back, and what we have in front of us is we've got our cloth that we're going to be using, the duck cloth, and we've got measuring tape, pencil, and square, and the saw. And so we also have our wood. So here is the wood that we're going to be cutting, and basically what we're going to do for our purpose today is I'm going to measure. We're going to cut one that's about 1.5 feet by 3 foot. So we're looking 18 inches by 36 inches, and that's what we're going to cut today. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out the wood, and we know this is an 8 foot long piece of wood. So say we're first going to mark out the 18 inch right there, and then we're going to do another 18 inch right there. So that's the first two cuts are going to be 18 inches a piece. Let's mark them. Mark them. And take our wood. There we go. And we have our saw. And we're just going to go ahead and get right down on that line. We're going to go ahead and and what I like to do is double check the first cut, and that is exactly 18 inches. Good. So, double check the next cut, make sure our line is, and I did this purposely because when you do a cut, your line is going to also, you have to take into account the width of that blade. So actually, we lost about 1/16 of an inch, so we're going to remark the wood for that lost, for the lost measurement for the width of the blade that we did on our first cut. Okay, so go down, and you want to make sure that the blade is that the blade is on the far side of the line. Because if it's on this side of the line, you're going to lose a blade width. But since on that side, we're not going to lose anything. Okay. So now we have these. Match them up. And yep, they're exactly identical. Perfect. Alright, so now what we said was we wanted to do 36 inches. Well, these are 18. So what we need to do is we're going to do 36-inch length. But if we cut this at 36 inches, then we actually wouldn't be at 3 feet, 36 inches. We would actually be much larger than that because we have the width of these two that are going to be in here. And if you look, you have to take out, and this is going to be about a little over 2 3/4. It's about 2 7/8 that we have to subtract from the 36 inches. So what I normally do, because I'm not a carpenter, is I mark that spot right there. Okay. And so then I take the 36 inches here, and boom. Now I know I'm not going to, the end of this is going to be waste wood anyway, so I'm going to have to use a new one, so it really doesn't matter. What I'm going to do up here is cut the little piece off that is the same length as the width of those. So I'm going to do that just because that's how I do things. If you're a carpenter and you're building houses, my brother's a carpenter and he hates it that I do it this way, but you always measure twice, cut once, and I don't like to waste wood, so that's how I do. That's why I do it this way. So anyway, so we're going to cut the little tail section off. And before we do, remember, you want to cut on this particular cut, we're going to cut on that side so that our line is this actual measurement between this line and the other line. So, okay. So that's cut. Wait till the blade stops. And then we'll do our final cut here. And line that up. And we're going to go ahead and just... Okay. So, and to double check to make sure that we have the right length, we're going to lay this down and put one on one side. Well, actually, we can just do them both on here. And let's measure. And that's 36 inches. So that's what we wanted. Because we want to do, if you're going to do a frame, try to just do like round numbers. You don't want to do like one side 32 7/8 and then a height being like 14.3 inches. You know, I mean, just most people like, hey, how big is your painting? Oh, it's 18 inches or 1.5 feet by 3 foot. They like that. So, and then even though we're going to not be framing this because we're going to do the museum wrap on here, as you can see, we'll do the museum wrap and we're going to paint. It's still, people may end up framing it down the road somehow. All right, so what we're going to use, we got waste wood here. So what's the waste wood going to be used for? Well, we're not going to throw it out, and that's a nice thing. You can use your square, but what we're going to need for these is we're going to use these for the diagonal. You're going to use these for diagonal supports in the corner. Now, you have a square, so if you're not using a saw like this where you can adjust the angle, because down here I can actually adjust the angle to cut a 45 degree, what you want to use is your square, and you can just go ahead and draw a 45 degree line, and we're going to do a 45 on one side and then the 45 on the other side, So that way this will fit right in here as a support bracket. So we're going to have 2 support brackets. So let's go and set this to 45. And we're going to go ahead and, it doesn't matter actually how long your support brackets are. I mean, I'm going to make probably 2 out of here maybe. Actually, you know what? I'll probably just go 1, and I'll just make 1 longer one. So the idea between this is to just cut a 45-degree angle, and we're going to go ahead and cut that now. And so this sits like this. And so when you cut the angle, this depends on how far out you want to go. Now the other angle is going to be cut this way. So it's like you're making a triangle. And it doesn't have to be a too precise cut because the angle itself is going to tell you where to place it on the wood. So we're going to flip it over. And we're going to go ahead and cut. Cut here. Trying to show you doing the cutting, so I wouldn't normally be standing behind it or to the side like this, but okay. So now we've got this is going to sit like that, and then this will be a brace just like that. And what we'll do is we'll screw in here, we'll screw in here, we'll screw this way, and then that'll be a nice support. And then this one over here, which we can use this piece of wood for, will actually go from the top down, so that each one, we only need to do 1 support this way, 1 support this way, and for a small frame like this, that should be more than enough. Okay, so as you can see, we've now laid out the wood. That's what it's going to look like, all laid out on the table. And so now we just got to put it together. So we'll get our glue, screw guns, some screws, and T-square, and we'll put it together. Okay, so I've got my glue, I've got my drill gun with my screw head on it. I've got my square, so I can make sure that everything's going to be square when I'm on the inside here. When we're doing this, we'll make sure everything's square. Got my tape measure, just to double check. Always have a tape measure. I have a pencil, just in case. And I got a whole bunch of screws. So what I like to do is I like to lay out my screws into where they're going to go first. And some people may not think this is necessary, but to me, I always like to be safe. Know I have every screw, it's the right length to get into the wood, see where it's going to have to sit, and so I'm going to lay that out real quick. So as you can see, I've now laid out the screws on the wood, so I know where each and every one's going to go. I'm going to go ahead and start screwing these in, and I'm also going to put wood glue at all the different joints. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a larger drill bit that's the size of the drill heads, and I do have some countersinks, but basically I'm just going to put little drill marks and real shallow ones where I'm going to do all my screwing here. So we're just going to put one there, and then one here, and one here, and one here. Okay, so all I did was put a little bit of a little shallow screw hole here, so that way when we do the screw heads can actually go under the wood, so they're never touching the canvas. And I'm going to take my T-square here. Get out my glue. Don't need a lot of glue, so we're not going to use a whole lot. Just going to put some glue there on the end. Just that much, not a lot. Put my lid back on. Okay. And pull a bit out. Screw it in. Make sure that you're screwing in. That's it. And doing that the other side. And so we'll just put all those screws in, screw in the supports, and then when we're done that, I'll be back with you and we'll put the cloth on. Frame. Nice and steady, nice and steady. So, I'm going to clean up here real quick, and then we're going to stretch the fabric. Okay, the ends. Lay this over. Now, obviously, I bought a bigger bolt because I make several. I buy this in big lengths so that I can make several different frames twice. So now it's all laid down, and I have my knife. Let's go ahead and slice this. Now I'm going to flip this over. And I'm going to pull frame over. Like I said, you can see a lot of the extra, and I'm not worried about the extra on this. So what we're going to do is pull this over so that we have at least a couple inches, either side, which we do. And the first thing is put one staple right in the center. And then I just kind of pull it, stretch it. And so you want to pull the fabric as much as you can, tighten it. So we're pulling it back and also up. So we're pulling it like in this direction. And we're just getting as tight as we can. And we're putting in the staples. And pulling both sides. And when we put the staples in, we're putting the staples in parallel to the board, because when you're putting the staples in, you want to have at least two anchors. If it was the other way, if it was lengthwise, you'd have two anchors, but they're in a line, and so it would probably tear the fabric. So by putting them horizontal or vertical, parallel with the wood, it gives you basically about a half an inch of grip for each staple. And we're putting a ton of staples in, so we won't have any problem like that. So I'm just going to continue going down the side here. And it doesn't matter which you do first. This is just how I do it. Okay, as I get to about a foot away from the end, what I do is I grab this wood and I pull on this really tight, and you actually see right at the dead center, and I pull it over, take my staple gun, put about 4 staples there. You'll see all the wrinkles disappear. Now you don't want to do the whole end of the line there until you've got both sides done. So I'll go ahead and finish this side. Out of staples. Okay, so had to get some staples, got my trusty box of staples. A lot of people have, for some reason, a lot of problem loading staple guns. They're super easy. The clip opens up, you take some staples, plop them in, boom, it's done. Takes about 8 seconds. So, anyway, and more for the corner. Like I said, I like the corner. And we're done. Now, you notice on the back we got a ton of extra fabric there. But on the front, it's really pretty tight. So we have a nice fabric now. And so after this, all we have to do now is primer the fabric with our primer, which we'll do in a minute. And then after that, wait for it to dry. Like I said, it takes sometimes, depends. Like today outside here in South Florida today is a really muggy day, as you can tell. I'm sweating a little bit. And we've had rainstorms for the last 2 days, so what I'll do is I'll paint this and then take it inside and let it dry for a while, because I try to let it dry out here. The humidity is just way too much, and it just would take forever to dry. So that's where we're going to go. I'm going to go get the primer. I'll show you how we do this real quick, and then you're all ready to start painting. And congratulations. Alright, so this is my primer. This is a Glidden general purpose interior latex primer. Works fine. This is my stir stick. Every time you open it up, you want to give a nice stir. I keep a ton of stir sticks around. And primer gets a nice thick consistency. It's more paste-like than it is It's more of a pasty. I like the thick primers like that. And then, as I told you, one of those inexpensive brushes. I think this is like one of them $1.50 brushes. And then you just take the nice thick primer and you put it on. And I do, because remember, see how thick the sides are here? So you want to make sure that you primer all the way down onto the side. So and I just sit there and, old Karate Kid thing. I mean, that shows my age, but there's just up and down or back and forth, whatever works for you. You need to make sure that everything gets covered up. See how, I don't know if you can see it, but the primer needs to be absorbed by the fabric. And if there's no primer there when you go to paint, then what happens is the fabric will completely absorb your paint, whatever color you use the first time, and that's going to be in the fabric, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't allow other colors to be absorbed right. So it's just better to do it the first time the right way. And you can see how lumpy it is when you put it on. It'll smooth out, and as it smooths out, it also completely, see right here how the fabric has a little give? Yeah, once you put this primer on, in the thick pasty stuff here, it won't give at all. Once it's dry, it'll be really nice, flat, good consistency. You'll be able to paint on it. Alright, so now our canvas is primed, and it's just time to let it dry. And now we have a really nice 18-inch by 36-inch, or a 1.5 by 3 foot canvas to use. And we'll use this for one of our next painting assignments. So now you know how to make one. It's not that hard, not that expensive. Something like this would probably, in the craft store, if you were going to get one of these, it would probably run you $35, sometimes to $40 for something like this. Regular price now, so obviously. However, we made it for about $6. Once you have all the equipment, they don't cost that much to make, and that's why you'll see some of my paintings are very large, because I can do a 4 foot by 5 foot canvas and it costs around $20 to make. So anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again.
Alright, so now that you've got your tools, you've got the paintbrushes, you know how to build a canvas, you know where to get canvases, you've got all your paints, you now know kind of what you need to buy, where to buy it, how to put it together. Our next episode is we're going to start painting. And so from beautiful Cape Coral, Florida, Buddy and I say thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
April, should they subscribe to this channel even if they don't like cars today for this one?
Probably just for this one.